Come out.
Hi, welcome everybody. We are going to be in conversation with Councilmember Alondra Cano from Minneapolis. We're just a few minutes behind waiting for the council member, but I'm sure she will join us shortly. My name is Erin Velarde, and I'm the founder of Vote, Run, Lead, and I'm excited to connect with you today as part of our Kitchen Cabinet series, Radical Leaders Uncovering Our Past to Build the Democracy We All Deserve. And while we wait for the council member, I wanted to share with you all what we've been talking about this last week. So this was Kitchen Cabinet class number 4 for VRL, and it was about the rule of law. And it's about the national conversation that we are having on police violence and how we reimagine policing in our communities. And while we wait for the council member, we'll give her a few minutes. I wanted to share some resources and information that had come out from a new poll. So there's a new study from a poll conducted on behalf of Run for Something and Collective PAC. And I want to share with you a few of the top lines. And there's a couple of very specific frames also that I want folks to understand who are running for office right now or thinking about how to talk about this. So the first thing for candidates is, number one, you should be talking about police violence in your communities. You should be talking about this issue. In fact, it's likely for candidates who don't talk about this issue that you'll end up paying a political price, right? It is on the news every day. It is in our conversations with our families. And how you talk about that as a leader, how you show up as a leader talking about this issue is critical. And for those of us, I think it's important to examine, to get a piece of paper out and to do some journaling, some writing about how you feel about the issue of police violence. What does it mean to you? What does it mean to members of your community to do your homework as well? So there are 4 specific frames that have actually really resonated. These are with voters in battleground states. So this may or may not be your community, but I wanted to make sure everybody had this information. And a big thank you to Run for Something and Collective PAC. Equity and inclusion is one of the big 4 frames. Police officers are human beings just like you and me. They're not perfect, but most are committed to protecting and serving. So one of the things that came out is, instead of penalizing entire police departments, how do we actually have an equity and inclusion process that really makes sure officers are equipped with the skills they need to serve Black and Brown communities better. And this is the poll results. This is not a POV, if you will, of Vote, Run, Lead. This is what the results ended up showing of this national poll. And so this means investigations. This means diversity and equity inclusion training, rooting out unconscious bias. And one of the speakers we had yesterday, Dr. Natalie Parks, who was actually working with the St. Louis Police Department, shared with us on the Kitchen Cabinet session that officers are talking to her about the desire for de-escalation training. So I think that is really powerful. One of the second frame I want to share with you from the poll is reactive, that no one is above the law, right? Not even police officers. And so it is time to abolish qualified immunity. And that we need tougher laws now more than ever to weed out bad apples, right? And again, this is coming from the poll. Yesterday as well, I would love for you to go back and check this out. State Representative from Colorado, Leslie Herod, actually did pass a bill. And one of the things that she did around qualified immunity was to actually have an insurance process behind it. So just like we have a driver's license, or just like doctors have a malpractice insurance, there is an encouragement for the private sector to come in and actually do stronger assessments on the amount of insurance that an officer might need. So that was something I learned that was new for me, and I thought fit really well as a piece of policy to look through. And if the VRL team wouldn't mind putting up the bill, the name of that law that was passed by Representative Leslie Herod in Colorado, it is a piece of legislation that you all should be looking at. You all should be reviewing. It is beautifully done. It was with a wide coalition. She reached out to, chiefs of police, civil rights attorneys, the protesters, talking about how we can, alter 911 as calls come out and get the right resources out to our community. So a piece of legislation, I think, that is actually really powerful and a good model. So reimagining policing is the third frame. Police budgets have increased exponentially throughout the United States. And yet, in spite of this increase and these military grade weapons, we've actually not become safer. And so research shows that what actually brings peace to communities is safe and affordable housing, well-funded schools, accessible healthcare for all, and the idea of redistributing budgets. I think one of the big things that came out of this poll around language and messaging is that defund isn't necessarily landing with voters, but redistribution, reallocation is landing with voters. And again, this is the research from the poll. This is not a point of view of Vote, Run, Lead. We want you to have the latest information as candidates, as leaders in your community about what in the moment voters are thinking and feeling. And then finally, the last frame for our leaders, for our candidates, is to be proactive. Crime goes down when communities are equipped with better resources like housing and health centers, and making sure that we are investing that money into crime prevention. And so time to sort of break a pattern, right? That we need to get proactive as leaders. So these are 4 messages, 4 frames that are working with voters in battleground states. And we wanted you to have the latest access. And again, we want to thank Collective PAC and Run for Something for pulling this together at this critical time. And it really lined up beautifully with our class this week, which I encourage you to take. 3 great speakers. Again, Representative Leslie Harrod from Colorado, who passed a really significant piece of legislation in the Colorado Assembly this year. Dr. Natalie Parks, who really understands the behavioral changes of policing, and has an insight, in the ride-alongs that she's doing with the St. Louis Police Department on what can truly be done. And then finally, we have a communications training with Jamu Green about some of this messaging where we go deeper into this poll. So, great. Great. And you see along the bottom here, runforsomething.net, policing, poll 2020. Thank you so much to our friends over at Run for Something and Collective PAC. We're going to give the councilwoman just one more minute, but I have a feeling that she's a very busy woman. Alondra Cano, Minneapolis Councilwoman for the 9th Ward, also a Vote, Run, Lead alumni, who is really doing the hard work of doing this reimagining, of being very proactive, some of these frames that we've talked about. I just want to see if my team wouldn't mind shooting me a message on Slack if we have heard from the councilwoman just yet. Right. All right, all. We're going to have to call it. I hope that information on the new polling was helpful for you. Please check it out. Please dig in. I really encourage you to do your own reflecting, to read what's happening in your local communities, and really speak from the heart on this issue. What does it mean to you? How do you feel? And then get the perspectives of people who are not in your networks. Get the perspectives of Black and Brown communities if you are not connected to Black and Brown communities. Do the listening that's required as a leader on this issue. Make sure to check your own biases. If you're feeling uncomfortable, that's the space to be in right now, right? This is a time of inquiry. This is a time of learning and leading. And, especially on issues that are deeply emotional, it is really critical that we are transparent in our leadership and that we are always listening in the process. And, as we get to a solution, if you have been transparent along the way, if you have listened to a diverse set of communities, if you have done leadership with integrity, no matter what that solution is, or whether it's incremental or whether it's a leapfrog solution, people are going to be with you because you've had buy-in, because you've been transparent in your process. So for our candidates out there, our leaders out there, I encourage you to lead with your heart, to lead with your head, and make sure to do the hard work that this issue requires. All right, thank you so much, Vote, Run, Lead community. We'll check back in with Alondra, with Councilwoman Cano, and very likely reschedule for this critical conversation, and we appreciate all of you. Be sure to tune into next week's class.